I read something very interesting that Nisargadatta had written many years ago, which was that the entire spiritual process is a movement from living in a verbal world to the nonverbal. Moving from verbal to nonverbal. Moving away from mind talk and living without mind. That's what so many people find hard to do in spirituality, including myself. Escaping the mind completely and just living without the interference of mind. It's your ideas that screw you up. Ian moving away from just focusing on himself and being in a zero state to talking about traumas and interpersonal traumas. He moved away from the comfort of self and well on his way to the zero state and got into how the external world was fucking him up and he was fucking the external world up. Why? It is really difficult for most people to give up the mind because it seems like you're giving up yourself because you've identified with the mind and everything it points out to you as knowledge. But there's no knowledge that's worth that. There's no knowledge that's worth giving up the zero state for. You've got a thought. Maybe you've been feeling really good for weeks. And suddenly your mind starts making a problem. And you react to that imagined problem by going apeshit berserk or dropping out of school or dropping out of life and becoming a monk because you thought it'd be otherwise elsewhere. But no matter where she goes, Vesselina will take her mind with her. Her mind that is continuously judging, measuring, comparing, judging how much she hates school, judging how much she misses Michael, but at the same time, complaining about how Michael is. And that sometimes he seems like a stranger because he's so different from me. Moving away from knowledge into nothingness. That is, having no ideas about the world. No ideas, Frank, about what enlightenment is. Let it always remain provisional, so you never think at any time that you're enlightened, because you don't have ideas about what the state is like or how you get there. Just move away from mind. And the concept of zero state is merely that it depends on the concept of diving deeper, like Robert talked about. You look inside and you feel inside. Maybe you feel first inside your breath, your lungs moving, and the chest muscles expanding and contracting. Then you watch the mind for a while. You don't just drift watching the mind, you separate from the mind. And you watch what it talks to you about. The mind has a personality. It's talking to you in repetitive ways. Your mind is peculiar to you. It bothers you in certain ways that it doesn't touch another person at all. It's really all about how much are you willing to give up the mind and just be yourself. Now, the zero state is where you are after you give up the mind. And by give up the mind, I just mean you don't react to it. You don't take it seriously. You don't listen to it. You don't allow its judgments to affect you. You watch the mind and you watch the mind talk. And it tells you all kinds of shit all the time. Mine used to tell me about how to build a house or a bridge or a fort or something like that. It's always busy doing male stuff of construction and analytics. Maybe it talked about logic, but it never spoke about merely being, because for it, merely being was a despicable place to be, of ignorance, being like an animal. The mind is so hard to give up, as is your identification with your body as you. The zero state is to progressively go through all the layers that you had thought to be yourself and finding out they are becoming objectified and other. When you can watch your mind go hour after hour, day after day, it becomes a stranger to you, and it's no longer you. And then there are the emotions. Some have emotions that come up so easily. And when they come up, people find the need to react to the emotions rather than just feel the emotions and not react. And this is where the trouble starts with so many people. I feel humiliated. I feel put down. I feel lonely. I feel anger. And the mind makes up stories why you should feel this way. And that makes it more real. It's so hard to get rid of the mind and the judgments of mind. But by looking and feeling within and just watching or feeling what arises day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, you gradually move away from mind and you penetrate the level of emotions and just feeling the emotions without reacting to them. Just like you can watch the world, and after a long period of time, not react to them as much. I know seeing the death of somebody that you're close to creates sorrow and grief. And it's all right to feel that and to go very deep with it, because sorrow and grief can take you so deep into yourself, into the deepest depths of emotionality for you. But beneath emotions, beneath thoughts, there are still levels of self. The energetic level, the level of bliss, colors, inner lights, observing and merging into the life force. And becoming aware of consciousness itself as opposed to the objects in consciousness. And realizing that the objects within consciousness are also just consciousness, as is your body. Your body is just consciousness. What has happened is you have gone below whatever level you've been examining. By examining it, you've pushed it away from you and you've made it an object. So, when you examine emotions, you make them objects and not you. You're not angry anymore. You watch the anger arise in you. And you're free to not react. You can just watch the feelings arise and get very, 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 very strong. But if you just keep observing it, they become an object and just part of consciousness. And you're separate from it. So emotions, the energies, even bliss, even peace, all these become objects in consciousness. And you as the subject are separate. In a sense, you can say you're submerging yourself deeper and deeper into levels of unconsciousness. You're very aware of them. But you realize you're separate from them because you're watching them. And you've brought them from inside of you and controlling you, such as thoughts or emotions or the energies. to merely being a witness of them. And you dive deeper until there's a place you can't dive anymore. And in this place, going inwards turns around suddenly in a microsecond. And suddenly you're observing everything separate from it. You have become the absolute, so to speak. You have become the self. But for some people, that's not enough. They want something more. I remember Philip Kapleau, my first live teacher, said that enlightenment was like going into a dark room and fumbling for a switch for many years, a light switch, and then suddenly finding it and turning the light on. Like now you know the way. You hear that, Frank? That's an idea. It doesn't have to be that way. The idea would be to get rid of the mind and its judgments by just watching them arise in you and how they grab your goat, so to speak, and turn what had been happiness into unhappiness. And what has happened is you never got a wedding ceremony with your own self. You've never got to exchange rings with your own self. Even when you become your own self, it doesn't stay. You're not there permanently from the time it happens. It's just that, this is the turnaround point. You're at the zero state at this point. The boundary between you and the absolute witness. On one side is everything that exists. On the other side is the void. And you're right on that border when you turn around. And if you can get comfortable with that border, it's like living in paradise. At this place, you're like God, watching the entirety of creation, and yet feeling inside of you the depth of the infinite. You're on the surface of a bubble between existence and knowledge, without a mind anymore. I mean, the mind is there, but you don't have to take it seriously. It's all passing dreams. And thus Robert comes up with the idea, and Ramana, that the world doesn't exist, because from this point of view, It's just an object in consciousness. Everything you see, feel, hear, touch, taste are objects in consciousness. You're certainly not the body, because that's only one category of experiences in consciousness. But when you can experience all of consciousness at once as object, you are that which is prior to consciousness. The separation is still there. Consciousness becomes identified as the totality of the experience of the world, both your external world of being around you, but also your mind, your body sensations, the energies, even the void. They're all experienced by you. And you have no measure. You're not a thing. You're the absolute subject. You've spent many years in spirituality making the subjective objective. You've watched your mind for many years, and it becomes nothing to you. It's only an object to you. You've done the same with emotions. Ian, Cassie, you learn to just watch the emotions and not react to them. Don't react. You don't have to react. Just let them grow as powerful in presence as they can be. But you don't have to react. They're not you. Just stay still. Feel them. Watch them. But why the hell do you let them disturb you? We all have so many judgments. So many bugs that bite us in the ass. And we feel forced to react. But you don't have to. You can be a prisoner in a small cave where you're fed twice a day for 30 years. You're in a small cell in a cave that's pretty warm, constantly at 65 degrees. You've got a mattress, bed, and somebody you can't see comes to your door every day and puts food in a slot for you to eat. Your cave has a separate bathroom, so you don't stink up your place where you live. And there's nothing you can do. Nobody will talk to you. The only one that'll talk to you is your mind. And soon you can become a couple. You as the absolute speaking to the mind, and the mind speaking to the absolute, and creating a bifurcation into the other and into you. But maybe now temperature fluctuations start after you're there for 10 years. The 11th year, during the nighttime, it goes down to 50 degrees. In the daytime, it goes up to 71 degrees. And you begin feeling these temperature fluctuations, and they may even exaggerate and get colder and warmer. And it's a gradual process. So you sort of become like the turtle in warming water over a fire. But after a while, they bother you. Why? Because you seek something called comfort, which means your external world doesn't bother you that much to be able to place your attention on it. You're in a comfort zone where you don't have to do anything. And so it is with anything that bothers us. Just watch it and feel it. But don't react to it. Instead, stay grounded as the witness. Watch the physical slings and arrows come and go. Your stomach aches, muscle pain, being stung by an insect, feeling the pangs of hunger or of thirst, feeling the cold and starting to shiver. And instead of doing something about it, like running around looking for firewood inside the cave, you just sit back down and watch it and feel it. Feel the cold grabbing at your arms and your legs. And how you sink inwards to get away from it to your core. And your whole body begins shaking. But it's still an object to you. You just watch it, like watching a bacterium, under a microscope. You're at the stage now where you're transitioning from identification with the body to identification with the totality of consciousness. But you just keep sitting, watching your body, not paying much attention to the thoughts anymore because you've transcended the mind long ago. It's a lot like the radio playing outside your cave, and not so close as to bother you. People are talking, but you can't understand what they're saying. And they talk very animatedly. Maybe they're arguing with each other louder and louder, inviting you really to participate. But you can't quite make out the words and find out why they're so mad. They can't tell you anything about their states of mind. You can just watch them and feel them coming at you, trying to get your attention. But since you can't understand them, you have no mind, so to speak. You just experience it like two loudspeakers in front of you, one on the left side, one on the right side, barking at you unintelligibly. This is what it's like getting closer and closer to the zero state. You get away from the mind, and you get away from the need to immediately react to external stimuli. And external begins to apply to more and more things going on inside of you, like your mind, your emotions, your energies, and lots of other levels in there, like your body, the tension in your body that's locked in there. Or if you're doing meditation, pain in your hips, your knees, and your back. In Sesshin, Zen Sesshin, you go from everyday life to a week of just sitting quietly, to getting up every 25 minutes or so and walking around the zendo or walking around the grounds outside in silence for 5 or 10 minutes, then coming back and sitting again. And you do nothing but that. You go from sitting to walking, sitting to walking. And the only thing you're supposed to have on your mind is your koan, if you have one. The strange thing is, in the silence of a monastery, nature sounds are all that you have, and the clanging of a wood thing being struck with instructions and the sound of bells. Each has a meaning and tells you what to do, so you don't have to think. It's incredibly stressful at first to sit rigidly in a Zen posture, and if you can do it cross-legged or Padmasana, full lotus. And they encourage you to begin to sit cross-legged and half lotus and then full lotus as your knees and hips feel pain, but you tolerate it. Then sometimes on the third day, almost instantaneously, all the tension lifts and you're sitting perfectly still in Padmasana, perfect lotus position, but you have no more pain in your back, no more pain in your hips, no more pain in your knees, because of the use of willpower to maintain that rigid posture for 3 days, that posture which has stressed your body in unbelievable ways, until you give up somehow, without consciously being aware of it, the stress on the body as something that's inside of you, and now it's gone. And you're sitting in full lotus, happy as can be, because you, so to speak, have disappeared. And all that there is the external world around you. The clouds that float overhead, which you don't see, but you can hear the wind in the trees. You can hear the birds. You can hear the airplanes flying overhead. You can feel the cold in the room because they don't heat the room. And you're wearing thick clothing to keep you warm. And just the force of your sitting strongly in meditation generates such heat that you feel perfectly toasty. Even when the kinhin bell sounds and you get up and start walking around, you either walk outside in the snow with bare feet. You don't feel it. You pay no attention to it. The power of your meditation and your surrender of just being the witness rather than hopping around trying to make your body feel warm has successfully rescued you from the pain of the world. Now you're just the self. You're just all witness, no longer aware of yourself, but only of the external world. You're not aware of your body. But you can go further in this. You can get to the place where you're not even aware of your body. You're not aware of the energies. The energies don't last when you go into a Zen monastery. There, you find yourself deeper than the energies. You find yourself deeper than love, deeper than emotions, and they no longer arise. What arises is nothing except the sounds of the environment around you. And that's what you identify with. They're no longer something external to you that you have to do something about. You're in a state of not reacting because you're in the self. And the external world means nothing, really. It's just there like a photo, like a movie without sound, or with sound that has nothing to do with the movie. You are you, the self. And you come out of it and you wonder, like I did, which is the truth, which is reality. The state of absolute happiness and freedom that I experienced in deep meditation, or the experience of me no longer being in that state, like 2 weeks after sesshin, when the world begins to bother you a lot again. When thoughts begin to make their presence known by grabbing your attention. And then you come up with the idea that there are two worlds of the absolute and the world of the relative, of existence. But after many more years of meditation, that distinction falls away too. And then you realize sometimes your body is you, but mostly it's not. Sometimes your emotions are you, but mostly they're not. Sometimes the energies are you, but mostly they're not. There's the external world, including your body, your thoughts, your emotions, the energies that are constantly changing. But you, as the absolute in deep meditation, are equanimous. Nothing moves. There's just perfect happiness with no thoughts. Sometimes a thought will come, but it almost immediately passes away. There's no room for it inside of you anymore. But one secret is of spirituality is don't react to anything temporary. You take the place of the host, not the guest. You let things come like a guest in your hotel. They come and they go. Some guests you like, some you don't. Some emotions come that you like and some you don't. But they're not you. There's nothing new that you experience which remains as you. You are that which exists before any experience whatsoever. And all of the world, all of your emotions, all of your thinking, all of your energies, all of your body sensations are added onto you in the zero state. After a while, the zero state becomes a place you visit most often. You know it well. You know when you're there. And when you're there, the bliss can be so, I can't imagine how to tell you it, but it's not like the bliss of first finding the energies or immersing in the energies. It's like the bliss of being one with everything. And it's not a stunning kind of thing, but it's so subtle. So subtle. And it's followed by periods of long, utter peace. Peace so subtle and exquisite that it vibrates with a kind of energy. And then sometimes you can see that and experience it as you. And sometimes you experience it as the other, as God within. When it is totally ecstatic, totally peaceful, totally at rest, you can feel the life force in you that feels the universe through your body, your mind, your senses. And it's like you become two things. A point person for the life force, and you as a person. This is like a divine state of acting within God or having God acting through you. You feel the perfection of the state. I have a person who writes me all the time, describing in great detail his encounters with the absolute and the relative. And he can't move beyond this. He's caught in his mind. The distinction between the absolute, the witness and nothingness, and the world really bothered him, that there was such a distinction. Until he came to the realization that the absolute was the relative and the relative was the absolute. And the whole argument about inner and outer absolute versus relative, existential versus non-existing, the noumenal state, was a joke played on us by spiritual teachers and philosophers. It's not a joke. There's a real distinction there. And true spiritual maturity comes with experiences over a long period of time. The final knowledge one obtains if one is both patient and remains constantly introspective and watches how one progresses from being the mind to being emotions, to being the body, to being the energies, and to being that which perceives all of this, is long and complex. As Robert stated, he spent 17 years in India visiting various gurus because he thought there was probably more always to be understood, always to be experienced, new recognitions and new samadhis, or as the very famous Zen master Joshu from the 12th century said, when asked about his enlightenment experience, said he had 17 major enlightenment experiences and thousands of small ones. So what's your hurry? What's the disease you're running from? What is the thing in you that's bothering you? It got your ass in an uproar, so to speak. What's the disease? What's the anger? What's the frustration? Now, Ian got away from being inside of himself, and now he's in the world fighting with Cassie and saying he's being traumatized by the relationship, and he knows he's the cause of it, but how did he get there? He got there by focusing not on himself, but on the problems in their relationship. Vesselina does this all the time too. She's got two things to worry about: her pain of being in school and amongst ordinary people that never think of something deeper than what they're having for lunch, and her problems with Michael, who is not the perfect man from her point of view, or anybody else in their right mind would have as the perfect man. Or Maxie, who now stays away because he's so angry with me for something or other that I did, and he can't express it. He can't be there in front of us expressing. Give it up. You are the witness of all these things. You don't have to be at effect of all of these things that come to you, of the angers and the anguish, the frustration. They're not you. They're in the area of emotions and thinking or the environmental issues of being in a cold room or not having enough to eat and feeling starved. But you're not your body either. It's a progression. Like for me, it's leaving the mind, which was very, very hard in a struggle I went through a lot in my 30s and 40s, 2 decades, till I ran into Robert. And then I saw that consciousness were states that came to me who had no form, no function, no attributes for anything that can be said about it. It was vacuous, the void, emptiness, or nothingness. And the state of awaking consciousness came to me, and then that alternated with sleep consciousness and dream consciousness. And I saw them come to me as something alien. So what will your particular experiences be like? Why don't you think about it and 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 make yourself utterly miserable? You see, you're already all enlightened, already in that zero state. But many of you at this point don't value being in the zero state. You don't realize the utter freedom that gives you to be free of the mind and everything the mind is telling you to do, to be free from the body, to be free from the energies and following the energies. That state is there in you. It's the basic state of just existing and being aware. And it goes deeper because you can be aware even when the mind doesn't arise or self-awareness doesn't arise. You just are. In that state, it's indescribable what you feel because there are no words for it. You've gone beyond experience. On one side, you're the absolute nothingness, the noumenal, with no property, no agenda, no mind. On the other side is the experiential world, which is external to you, but which you can enjoy. You can feel it, you can hear it, you can taste it. And you can slip between different kinds of consciousness. If you like Mark, you can talk about higher states of consciousness, or higher worlds, or lower worlds, or medium worlds. That's the universe he lives in. His conceptual universe is very cluttered with higher worlds. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, each one a separate existence. Good for you. It's a crowded world. You'll never be lonely or bored. Now there's always a contest here between who's more relaxed, Eddie in his bed or Michael in his bed. They look pretty much equivalent, except Eddie flinched and smiled. But Michael doesn't flinch. He stays in the zero state or wherever he is. Are there any questions? Any complaints, Maxie? Any complaints, Frank?
have no complaints. I hear, I receive, I shut up.
Let me turn up the sound. It's hard for me to hear.
I said, I have no complaints. I hear, I receive, and I shut up.
Are you happy now? Or not happy?
I'm in a great place. Yes. Your note back to me was like a gentle 2x4. Thank you.
Good for you.
Yeah.
You appear very soft today.
Yeah, I feel that too. Thank you for this morning. I have to return to the work world, so I'll see you Sunday.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Jay, have you anything to say? Jay always has something to say.
I was bifurcating with the best of them for about a couple of minutes until you absolutely exploded me again. I don't know, maybe if I had been or were cooked longer, anything that you've said today would have been my freedom. My brain, the chatter stops. It starts to go from my brain down into my heart, into my hara. I'm like paralyzed in bliss. I find it so deep. I find my absolute incredulity that I can be in the presence of someone channeling Shakti and God and bliss and abiding love so exquisitely, Edgy, as you do every time. I love you. I love everyone here. I love everything that's requited by everyone here. Wednesdays and Sundays, it's like a cathedral that I take away with me. It allows me to live in the mundane world, to try to watch every moment and the grace in every moment. And it's so exquisite. Thank you. I love you. This was perfection and grace.
The exquisiteness is you, Jay, not me.
Gee, thank you.
It's finding yourself within, finding these things within yourself. You are the greatest. Don't take your eyes off of you. Ian, you hear that? Don't let your obsession about trauma or your interactions with Cassie take your attention off of you. Just don't react. Just don't react. Just stop it. You don't have to react. There's nothing written that whenever she, as you think, puts you down in your need to defend yourself or react. Become still like a rock, like a sitting Buddha, with a war going on around you, but not touching you. That war can't touch you unless you let it. Like you think it's so important that you have to tend to it and correct it immediately. You might practice having Cassie yelling at you 10 minutes a day and not reacting. And you do that 5 times a day. And she'll do nothing but criticize you and tell you to comb your hair, wash your face. Oh boy, are you stupid. I hate you. And let her do that for 10 minutes at a time, 5 times a day. And don't react. You'll feel the stuff coming up, but after a while, it'll be a joke. And you can do the same thing with her. Once you get freedom from each other, what else can grab you? Nothing. Vasilina, what do you have to say for yourself today? What nugget of truth are you going to enlighten us with?
Well, you slowed me down and made me almost fall asleep. I can't think.
Good. Very good. BJ, what about you? What still bothers you?
The only thing that my mental chatter. That's what bothers me. I'm probably giving so much of power to it, so I feel powerless.
Say that again.
I'm giving so much of power to it, probably. I feel myself powerless against it.
Sink into your body more. Disidentify with your mind as you can, if when you can, and sink into your body into a lower level than the mind. Aggie, anything to say?
I don't know what to say.
You're very lucky.
I became very relaxed while I'm listening to you.
Where do you live?
In Hungary, Budapest.
I hear Budapest is a very beautiful city.
Yes, but it's a very loud city, unfortunately.
They've got things for that. You put them over your ears and they hold out all sound.
You hear me?
What?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me well? Mhm.
Yeah. But I mean, you can block off the sound by putting on earmuffs, the noise canceling kind.
I understand. Mhm.
Then you can have silence in Hungary, in Budapest. Is there really two cities, Buda and Pest?
Yes, there is Buda side and Pest side. Pest side. I live in Pest.
What's the difference between the two outside of their names?
In Buda there are more hills, and in Pest there are no hills.
I can imagine that's a big distinction a person would pay for. We don't got hills in Pest. We're not hillbillies here. We're Pestbillies.
And there is no snow here in Budapest.
Oh, that's good.
Unfortunately.
That's good.
But I like snow, and I have to go. If I would like to see snow, I have to go very far.
That's what I want to be, a place very far from the snow.
Really.
Snow is really neat for me when I was young. But after I spent 2 winters in Detroit, which was much worse than Cleveland, I got cured of snow because we had snow 5 feet deep in drifts, and my car was locked in a snowdrift for a year. You're never happy with snow after experiences like that. Anyway, I see people ran out of questions, ran out of places to go. Good. Good for you to run out of places. Nowhere to go. Nowhere to go. Just into yourself where you always are. The zero state is always there, and it's a very, very happy state, so to speak. There's no misery in the zero state, only comfort and peace, sometimes bliss. I love you all. So I'll leave you, and you can sit for some time and listen to chanting or whatever you want to do. You can go and have something to eat for lunch. Who here? After a long time, I'm going to turn it over to Ian and Cassie, and maybe they can frustrate the hell out of you or whatever. Take care. Take her away, Ian and Cassie.